Welcome back to the Intel Extreme Masters at Cologne in 2014. I have no idea what that whooping was, but we may have a few Americans in the house other than QXC. Games are in the history books so far here in the open bracket number 1. We've got open bracket 2 coming up very shortly. Before we get there, we still have the matter of 2 lower bracket games, one of which is going to carry on right now, and the winners bracket final, which Mr. Apollo decides the first person through to the round of 16. So a really big game for MC and StarDust.
Yeah, this is a really big game. And it's funny because both of these players have already played in one big tournament, but they were both on other sides of the globe at the same time. MC was in Sao Paulo and finished 2nd, where StarDust was in Finland and finished 3rd and 4th. So they started the year really strong, both high finishes, and now they're going to find out who can actually play in the main part of this tournament.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned it much already because it's only the start of the year, but some WCS points up for grabs here as well. And like you said, both of these have started off very nicely so far. Round of 16 means a bit more points, quarterfinals even more, and semis and finals really start, you know, racking up some decent points at the start of the year.
And it's so important. I think a lot of people need to remember what happened with Revival and Naniwa that came down to minimal points. Minimal points, like 50 points are in it, which were gained at the last minute, which caused a tie. So if you think about that and now think about the start of the year, every single point is going to matter when it comes to the end. And as you said, points are up for grabs, especially if the winner gets this spot. They're automatically top 16, automatically in the WCS points.
Yep. Okay, so MC seems to have played, I don't know if this is an exaggeration on my part, but almost perfect Protoss play so far. I mean, real boss toss kind of Protoss play. So what's StarDust going to have to come up with here to beat him?
The thing is with StarDust is he's so aggressive and he understands how to play PvP very well. They play it out very similar and they have very same styles. And I think he's just going to have to kind of outsmart. They're going to have to outsmart each other, I think, a lot in here. But StarDust was able to beat one of the best up-and-coming Protoss players of last year, Dia, at the Aces tournament that he played just a few weeks back. So he's actually more than capable to beat MC here. I think he's on an insane record right now, something like 20 Protoss wins and 3 losses in best of 3 series or best of 5 series. So StarDust is really strong in PvP, but as you said, MC is playing some of the best StarCraft he's played in a very long time.
Can't just go straight to the winners bracket final but without talking about the lower bracket right now. I think we have an updated bracket for you as well, so you can see the results that have gone through. And Hasselobs taking out TLO after taking out San earlier on is now going to have to do it all again in the lower bracket.
Yeah, this is going to be much more difficult the second time around. It's always more difficult, especially if you were the underdog going into the first series anyway, which he was. And now going up against him again, it's like 5 times as hard because you've already used what you prepared to beat him with in the first series, and now coming into the second, now you need to actually resort to stuff that you maybe hadn't have prepared and maybe your normal gameplay. And San is so good. It's going to be a hard one, that.
It is going to be a tricky game. Do you also think there's some mind games in that, you know, Hassels goes in and goes, all right, well, first time, just going to do exactly the same thing. And San's going to be sitting there thinking, God, I hope he doesn't do what he did last time because I don't know how to answer that yet.
And especially in PvP, where the openings can create a big advantage which you can carry momentum with throughout the rest of the game. In the early stages of pretty much any rare matchup, Zerg versus Zerg, Terran versus Terran, and Protoss versus Protoss, if you win a mind game advantage and get that lead, if you're strong enough as a player to carry that momentum through, which we've seen many times across many different tournaments, it's going to be very important to win that. So not only you can think, like, I did this last time, but then you can think, well, what he thinks I'm going to do that, but I don't do that, and I do that, and just the complications can be pretty sick.
It's going to be fun. That one is going to go on. We'll give you some updates about that game at the end of the match as well. But for now, we're going to go over to our commentators, who are going to bring you our winners bracket final of Open Bracket 1. And don't forget, we've still got Open Bracket 2 to come for the rest of the day. And Groups A and B will take place tomorrow. Group C and D the following day. And our grand finals will take place on Sunday, where we will crown our Intel Extreme Masters Cologne champion. For now, though, let's go over to our commentary team for the winners bracket final.
The ultimate stare down. Thank you very much, guys, as we now get on to that winners game, MC versus StarDust. This is a really star-studded PvP lineup, I gotta say.
No pun intended.
Definitely no pun intended.
Yeah, on one hand, we have MC, who's been playing great. I'm sure if you followed the recent tournaments, most of you should be aware of what MC PvP is like, or just his play in general. But if you have not, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a reminder. He just took 2nd place in the Intel Extreme Masters Sao Paulo, only losing to Hero in finals 1 and 4. Of course, that was Hero, the double champion. No shame in losing there. MC before that beat A-Bomb 3-0, Hello Kitty 2-0. And before that, in an online match, he beat Sase, but barely, with 2-1. Some more recent results, online tournament versus Liquid Zero, 4-3 win here by MC. And just now, he had a 2-0 win versus Hazuops. I feel like no one of these wins was really dominant, and no one of these scores are that impressive either. Even though he beat some good players, it's not as impressive as StarDust match history in PvP in Mirror games, which now I'm going to tell you about. StarDust, he played in the qualifier for this tournament, and he beat Grubby 2-0 and Hazuops 2-0. He ended up losing to Tefel, so he was eliminated out of it, so that's why he has to play in the open bracket here. But actually, a lot of people seem to think that MC is going to take it here.
Yeah.
83%.
This is our community vote online. People thinking 83% MC will win. StarDust not having too much of a chance, but his PvP is fantastic.
Yeah. In Asus ROG, man, he beat San 3-0. That was in the group stage 1. Then he beat Deer 3-2, Patience 3-1, before finally losing to San 0-3. Pretty impressive results. I guess losing to San, definitely no shame here either, because San ended up winning the tournaments. But more recently, in the qualifier for Katowice, he played the American, then the European. He beat Tassadar, he beat Bling, he beat Deer, and he beat Liquid Zero. So StarDust, I would have to say, if we look at this match history, at all the scores, he might be the slight favorite here versus MC going to this.
I sort of think so as well. I mean, after those last 2 tournaments he's had against Protoss, it really felt like, after watching back the VODs of Asus ROG, it really felt like San, after losing 3-0 to StarDust, really kind of like used that as a learning pace, and then just absolutely flat out broke him in that next series. But aside from that, he really doesn't lose PvP that much, does StarDust. So despite you guys thinking out there, 83% for MC, this could be a hell of a lot closer, if not in StarDust's favor. He dismantles a lot of these Protoss players. But now, guys, let's get into game number 1 between MC and StarDust. Habitation Station is our map. As these 2 Protoss Titans face off against one another. Spawning up to the top left, we have our red Protoss. Ladies and gentlemen, it's MC. Probe did a little backflip there, it was sick. And up to the top right-hand corner, we have our blue Protoss. Representing my insanity, it's StarDust.
Both of these Protoss have been playing so well. StarDust actually qualifying for Katowice through the European qualifier. Like, for me, this is as impressive as winning a major tournament. I know it's not as prestigious because this is online and it's only a qualifier, but if you look in terms of skill level in the tournament, there was a lot of insane players, and he came out on top as the first and number 1 and the only qualified player from it. So right now I would say he's in an insane shape. And also he used to play a lot on his main account and stream a lot, so a lot of people could study him, and that's when his results started being worse and worse. But now he hasn't been streaming as much, and I suspect he's probably playing on the barcodes and practicing secretly. Even when I asked him about his games in the qualifier to try and find out what I could talk about in my casts about him, he seemed to be a little bit shy to talk about it. So I'm sure he's been working on a ton of stuff, and now we're finally going to get to see some of this firsthand here.
Yeah, it's so impressive. Every single one of those qualifiers for Katowice was so jam-packed with talent. And to come out on top, very impressive. Now, indeed, we're on Habitation Station here.
Again, as the first map.
Yeah.
It's like the new standard. Every PvP starts on Habitation Station, on Protoss grounds, man.
People seem to like it here on Habitation Station. That one Ultralisk in the middle of the map. Poor little guy impaled.
Who did that?
It didn't go well for that guy.
Who managed to do this?
It's an Overlord drop gone wrong.
Like 2 Immortals picked it up and
Oh, poor fella. But anyway, StarDust is actually setting out his probe pretty quickly here. He didn't scout out the main for proxies or anything, so he's not playing too safely against MC. But one thing's for sure, he's going to get over there pretty fast anyway, so he'll spot those that gateway cybernetics core pretty quickly.
And MC seems like he's again going for his go-to build on this map, which surely StarDust is aware of.
Yeah.
MC again just did it versus Hazuops earlier, and as much as he was able to do damage, he killed like 8 probes, he lost like 10 in his main. So StarDust, being aware of this, he goes for a very quick target. And it looks like he's just gonna try to barely defend, get some Phoenix out, I would say. Probably not an Oracle on this map, it's super risky. Then again, he did spot that there was no quick target from his opponent, so he could do quite some damage. And I think he knows that MC is going to go for the aggression. He was supply blocked for a moment here.
If he goes for a Phoenix, right now and then instantly denies that Mothership core, I am so impressed because he's just reading fully into his opponent very nicely. There's a Stargate on the way for MC, and he goes straight for the Phoenix.
Yeah.
Todd, he knows what's up.
Of course he knows, man. It's his job.
That's true.
And StarDust, I think right now he knows this is coming. He's going to have to pull back his Zealot, make sure he regroups with his first Stalker. He has the second one on the way. Ooh, actually, he's not being careful. Going to target down the other Stalker a little bit. The first Phoenix, he's going to come out now. And yeah, he should go for the Mothership core.
And it does not have energy for a recall or anything, so this is really, really annoying for him. Good micro here. He does lose the Zealot in the end, and absolutely needs to keep that Stalker alive. Otherwise, he's going to have a sad time. Whoop. And, well, the Mothership core will end up falling. The
That
Stalker's
Zealot,
still
by
alive.
the way, he's full hit points. It hasn't been hit a single time just yet. Oh, many probes. Not a single probe was killed.
Oh, very
This
nice
is-
round.
Are you kidding me? StarDust only lost
Wow.
a single Zealot.
That was really sick. And again, he knew from the very beginning, getting out that Phoenix would put a really nice timer on that Mothership core, zoning out for quite a while as well. And what a great follow-up.
StarDust did not have to spend 100 gas on his Mothership core, so he's ahead right now on gas. He has to be careful not to lose any of his Phoenixes right now. Actually, he's got 2 against 1. MC gets in there. What are you doing?
That's painful.
This is gonna end early here. Look, StarDust is proxy the pylon. He's gonna warp units across the map. He's gonna kill MC right away. MC messed up big time here.
Yeah.
Using the same build his opponent expected it. 2 more gateways on the way here for StarDust.
And now 3 Phoenix out here. They're going to kill off that one very quickly, and then they have energy to even pick up and isolate some of these Stalkers if he wants to go for the trade as well. Picking off 2 Phoenix for free is very, very nice.
Yeah, what's a read and insane micro here. We only had ever seen this from Baby Knight before. Here, StarDust with some nice moves himself. He could just get in there, pick up the Stalkers, and end the game. I think
He could.
He's just gonna wait for one more warp in, I think, as his gateway is finished. And well, when you have to face 4 Phoenixes and you have just 1 yourself, you're usually in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, all he has to do now is warp in a few more. As MC is throwing down a counter pylon so he can throw some Zealots in there, but by the time that comes into effect, I don't think it's really going to work.
And he has so much with StarDust Micro. StarDust Micro in those small fights is always insane. Look, he's gonna get right in there, target the Stalkers that he picks up, and well.
As long as he brings down those Phoenix in the air as well, he's going to be fine. Probes get pulled off the line because MC knows how much troubles he's in. He isolates another Stalker, brings that down as he focuses it from the air. One of the last remaining Stalkers does end up falling, and that Phoenix as well will die. So StarDust in game number 1 has looked absolutely brilliant, really reading his opponent so nicely.
Even if he holds here, he's lost a ton, 21 probes to 26. StarDust keeps on reinforcing with a ton of Stalkers, which is a perfect choice. GG.
Wow.
Is going to be called. And that's PvP how I like it as well, because as much as I like long games, this was so well played by StarDust. He knew what he was up against, he did the exact build he intended to do to try and counter it, and it worked out perfectly. The micro was insane. So few players can actually pull off this micro.
But I think now, with MC having been so brutally countered in that game, when we see him next on Habit Station, In Station, and PvP, I can only imagine he changes things up, because that was a masterclass in how to counter someone that is predictable. That was good.
Yeah, as I said it, looking at the stats, I really felt like StarDust was the favorite in this matchup. So now, as much as he knew exactly what he was going to go up against and he countered it well, I don't think it's going to be the case again in the second game, because it's Polar Knight and MC. He's definitely shown more than one build on this map, and it's going to be harder to anticipate on this map. Whereas in the first game, he saw exactly with the Scout, the Chrono Boost on the Mothership core, on the Stalker, and he knew exactly what was headed his way. Which I'm sure he was happy about.
Yeah.
Even though like you can't know for sure that you're going to hold, but if you anticipate your opponent doing something and then he does it and you already have a plan for it, it's already a pretty good scenario. I
think the great thing about that for StarDust also is that if that probe gets in and he actually doesn't see all the Chrono Boosts lining up exactly where he wants them to, Stargate's not a bad opener in general. You can just go for it anyway, and then be pretty confident, and maybe get an Oracle out if he wants to go for something like that. So really, really cool play here from StarDust in game number 1. Look, I'm really, really liking it.
Like, is he listening to music? Singing a little bit?
All right, well, looks like he's a little bit lost. But now we will wait and see what StarDust wants to do in game number 2. As you said, Polar Knight is the map. Is there anything specific here that you want to try and predict going into this map?
You know, I'm glad you should ask, because I feel like in PvP, MC is the aggressive guy who always likes to attack, and a lot of people, a good thing to do versus attack is to try and defend well. It's hard versus MC, but it's possible. And that's what people usually try a lot. Even Hero played sort of defensively versus MC. But StarDust, I think, is one of the only and very few guys that will dare take on MC's aggression with even more aggression. There is so few guys that will go into a match versus MC and think like that. But StarDust is definitely one of those guys. So if we see, again, fireworks or even dynamite in this match, I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, well, it seems I've been Twitter bombed, Todd. For the record, I have not challenged Carmack to a bet. It was not me.
Come on, man.
I would not be this stupid. But anyway, let's get into game number 2.
Don't chicken out of it.
I didn't even challenge him in the first place. What is this? Anyway, right, let's get into game number 2. As StarDust's currently 1 game up, Polar Night is our map. MC looking to bring it back. The winner of this will advance onto the group stages. So we now get prepared for Polar Night. Spawning up to the north, we have our red Protoss, representing esports management. Ladies and gentlemen, it's MC. And down to the south, we have our My Insanity Protoss. Currently 1 game up, it's StarDust.
You know, it's funny. I used to think that Korean pro gamers would never end up moving to Europe because I thought it was much harder than to move to the US. So I understood very early into StarCraft, a few of them ended up moving to the US. And you know, in the US, you have Koreatown in a lot of cities. It's very easy to basically get used to the lifestyle there and all. Whereas in Europe, I feel like it's much harder as far as food goes, culture and all that. But now, look at how many Koreans move to Europe. MC is currently residing in Germany. StarDust is in Switzerland. You have Patience as well in Germany. So a lot of them, they have actually migrated. You can say that, right?
Immigrated, yeah.
Immigrated. And yeah, they just came there to play the tournaments because there are a lot more tournaments in Europe or in that region, and it's convenient for them. They've done very well as far as adjusting and all that.
I've got to ask Todd, we see 1 gas only here for MC.
Yeah. And this was a gate 12, so I think maybe some kind of 4 gates or big 3-gate pressure. Again, it's possible he would do the same push as in the last game, but he was mining off his gas very slowly. Yeah, so I think we're going to have some aggression. Yeah, Zealot does start here for MC, and he's going to go for a quick scout. And by the way, yeah, to come back to the point I was making here,
yeah.
I do think that it's quite easy for Germans to get used, for Koreans to get used to Germany because there is a big community here of Koreans as well, and there is like a lot of Korean restaurants. I think the food is what is probably the most important thing. If you move to a country, if you're Korean and you move to a country where there is no Korean food, I think you will go crazy. Yeah. I think it's really hard for them.
I was even talking to the My Insanity CEO just before, and he was telling me about how Jack G brought an entire suitcase worth of Korean
food. He actually
food.
drove a truck from Korea full of ramen.
Apparently, Jack G couldn't even pick this suitcase up. He got his dad to help him to get it to the airport. So that's how much they really desire Korean food. It's very important for them.
And StarDust is actually going to scout this very early on here. I'm surprised MC didn't go for the 10 gate if he was going to go for this. I'm pretty sure this was a 12 gate. But actually, yeah, could it be a 10 gate? Because he has the same amount of probes. Anyway, MC, he has...
This is very, very aggressive.
Man, his warp gate is so much earlier than his opponents.
Yeah. In StarDust's position here, how do you actually hold this off? Because that's a good, like, 50, 60 seconds.
60 seconds. 1 minute earlier than his opponent is going to be.
That's crazy.
Usually to hold this, you need to be getting sentries out. But StarDust, he has no intention of doing that. He's getting more Stalker right now. And that probe is going to find its way in his main.
Uh-oh.
Oh, he pulls the probe. If he gets the second pylon, I think for sure he's going to be able to get a warp in the main.
Yeah, that probe is going straight through another pylon, as far away from this first one as possible, so it's harder for him to actually shut down.
Okay, if StarDust holds this, he's my new god, man, because this is such terrible of a situation for him right now. Look at it. Warp gate for MC finished. It's still 50 seconds away from finishing for StarDust.
And this is really scary. For MC, having the opportunity to just micro a large amount of Stalkers against an opponent who only has 2 out right now, it's going to be hard. Although Fortune Overcharge will buy him some time to get his Warp Gate out. But Pylons out of the range now of the Fortune Overcharge is going to be hard.
The boss units, man, they get into the main. MC should be warping in Zealous to help reinforce with this, but he's not. The Pylon is going to die.
But there's one up to the north of it as well. One up to the north. He actually brought his Stalkers up here through Fortune Overcharge to protect.
Yeah.
He absolutely needed to keep that alive. The one over just above the natural is way too far away for him to get going. And now Warp Gate's finished.
So this is a case of MC basically trying to out-warp in his opponent right now. He's trying to get more units just because he started the aggression earlier. And whoa, actually StarDust is pulling in a lot of probes.
Whoa.
He knows that MC is stuck in this corner of the map, so he's gonna go for it before there is the critical mass that MC wants to reach.
MC doesn't have that much opportunity to micro here. This is a really good choice. Micro's one of those Stalkers back, but does kill it in the end. But at the same time now, MC is being held against. He's losing a lot of probes here. Well, actually, in the grand scheme, he only lost 3, and his micro has been impeccable. GG. StarDust advances on. Wow, what good decision-making and control by this guy.
And StarDust, man, he has no time to waste. Those were some very, very quick games. I definitely did not expect the games to be that fast, but some very, very impressive games. And they went his way in the end. He was able to scout both times just because he scouted. You know, so many players don't scout. They take chances, but StarDust not one of those guys. Just like CJ's hero, he scouts, he reacts correctly, and he secures himself wins from there.
I think in the end, you know, a lot of people looked at this first bracket and said, MC and Sam, those guys are going to be advancing through. But now, with StarDust there being the wrench in the works, he advances on, and either MC or San is not going to advance on. So a big deal here. MC now falls down to the lower bracket, and San will advance on to the group stages tomorrow or the day after.
I really thought that StarDust was in so much trouble when I saw how the build orders were happening.
In game 2?
Yeah. But he adapted so well. You saw how many Stalkers he was getting. He got the initial 2 ones, and then he realized, wait, you know what? My opponent's Warp Gate just finished, and mine is still 50 seconds away from finishing, so I have time to make more Stalkers. So he started 2 extra Stalkers.
So important.
From the gateways that he had in the back of his base. He got them as Warp Gate finished for him. He morphed these gates. He's got enough units. And most of all, the micro was very good. Even though a probe got up in his main, he pulled exactly enough probes. Sometimes you pull too many, then you lose a lot of money doing it. He pulled exactly enough probes to kill those pylons and not let his opponent reinforce. And in the end, it was enough. Very, very nice hold. I really did not expect he would be able to do this well. Yeah,
I mean, you point out exactly right. You know, pulling those probes to go for the engagement as well, really understanding how much of a committal he required to deal with that was so, so important. So really, really cool play by StarDust as he now advances on. And that leaves us with 3 Protoss down in the lower. As I, interestingly enough, Todd, just got an invite into Hasselhoffs versus San. So I guess we're just sitting on and casting even more. I think you got an invite as well.
Oh, really?
Let's just do it, man. Wing it. Intel Extreme Masters. All right, okay. So what's the score? Alrighty, so we're just going to ask what the score is here. It might be the case that the first map has already concluded between San and Hasselhoffs, but regardless, we'll be casting once again. May as well sit on. Those 2 games were very, very quick, so more PvP. But for now, guys, we shall send it over to Paul to see what he has to say.
Thank you very much, Cologne. Yes, Intel Extreme Masters Cologne continues with not really shocks, I wouldn't say. I think we expected that to go one way or the other. StarDust, though, coming out on top against MC. He now goes through to the round of 16, which starts tomorrow. MC will now drop down to the lower bracket, as James rightly said, and he'll face one of the players that we've been watching over here, San versus Hasselhoffs. Predictably, perhaps, it's gone the way of San in map 1.
Yeah, no, actually, it went the other way. Hasselhoffs took map number 1.
Oh.
And a big surprise there. It was so even throughout all of the game, Red Eye. And then in the last moment, there was one fight which went in favor of the German player, and he's actually up 1-0, and he's going into match number 2 in the leads.
Okay, so we're in between maps right now, because I hadn't been watching this game, I've been watching the other one. What happened in the map 1 that you can kind of pinpoint that Hasselhoffs went and won it by?
So they opened up on Polar Night, which is the first map, and they played the exact same opening. Maybe something that one of them chose from the earlier rounds and thought about what they should do, but they both opened up overall 3 gateways, Blink, and then the robotics facility for safety for the observer and so on. They then both expanded, completely equal game. There was just small little things that Hasselhoffs did that gained a lead, And then in PvP and in any StarCraft game, there was one time San was caught out of position, Hazobs jumped at the opportunity, took out his army, took out the game.
Okay, so the three that we kind of picked out at the start were San, StarDust, and MC. But Hasselhoff's is a bit of a fly in the ointment right now, because if he wins this, goes through, he's got every chance, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's playing so well in PvPs today, and I really think that coming into this tournament, he went into a training house. He was training with Soke, Monchi, and a couple of other players, and it's really showing, because all these Protoss players were able to put their thoughts together and talk a lot about the game and just enjoy playing and discussing strategies. And he's already beaten San 2-0 before in the winner bracket, and he's now leading 1-0 again, and then, of course, he'll have to go up against MC if he does this. He could get through.
I mean, you're right. Todd spoke to us backstage before the tournament started and said, watch out for Hasselhoffs, because he's actually been kicking ass, was what Todd said, and kicking his ass, I think he meant. But he's been playing really well in the background, so it's nice to see him actually translate that to a tournament. We are going to go, hopefully, back to the commentators, because we have Todd and Kalaris in place right now, so it seems only fitting that they take us through map 2 and see whether Hasselhoffs can take another map off San and go through to play MC in the lower bracket 5. Let's go back to the commentary team. It's Kalaris and Todd.
Thanks very much, guys. All right, map number 2. Hasselhoffs is looking for the upsets today. That's certainly true here. As Frost, our next map.
Yeah, from what I hear, the first game of this series went basically like the first series that they played. They both played standard, went into the mid game, and from there, Hasselhoffs was again able to outdo his opponent, which, again, this is very, very impressive. San just won a big tournament recently. Hasselhoffs' PvP practice is really showing here.
Now, does this... there's a question I have to ask here as we get into game number 2, Todd. Does this show that PvP is still quite volatile, but going into the late stages, or is this just pure practice and Hasselhoffs being pretty good?
As much as I think it's still volatile, I feel like it kind of proves the opposite, because I think Hasselhoffs gets great PvP practice on Europe. There is so many Protosses. If you play 10 ladder, you're going to play at least 5 or 6, sometimes 9.
Sometimes 9. That's a lot of Protoss, man. All right, well, let's get into game number 2 here. San versus Hasselhoffs. The winner of this will advance on to play against MC. The loser is eliminated. And who would have guessed that San is currently 1 game down? And spawning down to the bottom left-hand corner, we have our red Protoss representing your Flash Wolves. It's San. And up to the top left-hand corner, currently 1 game up in this best of 3. It's Mao's Hasselhoffs.
If you had to describe Hasselhoffs in 1 word, what would it be, Kalaris?
German.
That's horrible. I would have said powerhouse.
Powerhouse?
Because, yeah, he's been around forever, and he's, for me, like, I really feel like he's a powerhouse. Every time he plays, he always delivers, even in a lot of important tournaments, actually. He always plays really well, even if he doesn't win all of them or always goes super far. What?
I don't know, you just... like, that was the first thing that came to my mind.
That's like not the way you answer to this question. It's like somebody asked me to describe you in 1 word. I would say English, even though it's...
It's pretty apt.
Yeah.
Okay, what would you say? Quick. You've got to be careful.
Probably can't say it on air.
Oh, that's not very nice. Anyway, all right, back into this PvP. Frost, we have Gateway. Whoa, actually, was the Gateway a little bit earlier there for Hasselhoffs?
Yeah, his score at least was, I think it was score 17 against score 18. Nothing too major here. 3+2 for both players on the gases right now. So similar openers. And Hasselhoffs, it does look like he's going to be the only player scouting early on. Man, after I saw that series from StarDust versus MC, I feel like I want to scout every PvP. And usually I never scout. So Hasselhoffs going for the scout here. Could possibly give him some good information later on. Sadly for him, he's going to spot his opponent last position. And San not opting to scout. He's going to get a little bit more minerals over time, but not that many.
All right, well, I think you were right there in saying that, you know, scouting in PvP, very useful if you can actually read into your opponent nicely, but...
Sentry maybe for Hazu as well. Both players opening Sentry plus Mothership Core. Oh, actually no, very quick Twilight.
Ooh, hello.
He didn't spot his opponent in the first position he went to, so he has some possibilities to maybe do something like hide a Dark Shrine on the map if he wants to. A very quick Twilight like this usually very often going to be for a Dark Shrine. Then again, Blink could work as well.
Gotta be careful. You do, certainly, here. San also sends his probe out, but the wrong way in terms of scouting, so he's going to have a hard time really spotting his opponent. Now,
Oh, yes.
Yeah, there's no way this isn't going to be anything other than a Dark Shrine. So...
Imagine it's like a Stargate. He just gets better.
like, wait a minute.
Hallucination scouts his main. He's like, oh, I'm safe. And then the
great.
Oracle flies in.
All right.
Actually, is he going to make the Dark Shrine down the ramp here?
Where did he make it? He made it... Because he has made it somewhere.
made it
okay,
in
it's at
his
the very
main.
back.
Just because he made the probe, maybe. This is a bit weird. He's going to have a pylon later on to work with, but it's not going to be well hidden, because you see that sentry that San made is charging up on energy. Very soon, he's going to have hallucination. Surely he's going to be able to spot that Dark Shrine.
Yeah, it's super important for him to see that. And as soon as he sees the Twilight Council, he will, even if he didn't go all the way to the back of the base for some reason and didn't see that Dark Shrine, as soon as he sees the Twilight Council, he'll definitely explore every single inch of his opponent's base, as we have even more pylons now being thrown down by Hasselhoffs, looking for a quick win after going up 1-0 in the series. And now the Hallucinated Phoenix is on the way.
Is on the way and should be able to spot everything that is up against with the much earlier expansion. San is going to be in a great position as long as he defends this well, but he hasn't started a robo yet. And the Dark Shrine is almost finished.
I mean,
this is going to be a problem. He's going to have to force field his ramp, not saturate his natural. He's actually sending out a Stalker right now to try and find some pylons.
I mean, we even saw like a small bit of micro on that Hallucinated Phoenix, because it's exactly what I was talking about. You know, he saw the Twilight Council, he was like, well, he was on a little bit of a weird direction, and wouldn't seen that initially, but he just corrected it, does spot that, and now one Dark Templar is already being warped in, and he's actually adding on a Forge as well. That's super quick.
This is the way that Hasselhoffs had opened versus San on Heavy Rain when they played earlier. And he ended up winning the game, even though the Dark Templar died not getting a single kill. So in this game, he even got a probe. He's going to delay the mining on the expansion. I quite like his position here, and I love the damage that he's done, even though it's not much in terms of kills. He's delayed his opponent a lot. And in the meantime, he knows that he's up against an expansion. You see he's chrono boosting out of probes. As soon as he transfers, he's going to have possibly a Walker lead if he chrono boosts well. And you see getting the robo behind this, he's going to play it very solid. Probably get an Observer, then an Immortal, and later on possibly take into Colossus, even though he already has the Twilight Council, so they could both go into something like Charge plus Archons.
I mean, the one salvation here for San is that he also spotted his opponent's Nexus, so he knew it wasn't some kind of crazy all-in, and did also continue on pro production as well. He's up to 37, even to 34. But Hasselhoffs also adding on that Forge. Did he spot his opponent's Forge? He didn't spot his opponent's Forge, but San is taking a swift lead in that upgrade.
Yeah, I really like that move, by the way, because he knows he's up against Dark Templars. Getting that Forge is not only going to allow him to upgrade, but also he can get at least one cannon in one of his bases. That means he only needs one Observer out on the map to make sure he can defend against some kind of DT drop plus an attack in another base. The Robo is going to be spotted immediately here for San, and we'll see what that triggers from Hazu here. Does he go for his own Robo Bay? Does he start Charge? That's basically the choice he has to make right now.
He also spotted the Forge that was whirring away as well, so he's only started his +1 and thus probably knows, unless that Forge had only just then gone down, that he is behind slightly.
I don't see how he could react to the Forge, except maybe for throwing down a second Forge.
Ooh, that would be cool.
Full and in control here versus San.
Some double upgrades, but the weapons is the bigger deal of this, right? The armor's not as huge a difference.
Yeah, the plasma shield, I guess since you always get Archons in this matchup, can be a bigger deal than the armor. Yeah, in my opinion.
Especially if you transition out to Tempest as well, and it benefits those somewhat. So it's certainly useful as plasma shields, especially if you go into that very late stage. But for now, we have War Prism in production here for San, so he's looking to get pretty aggressive.
This is surprising, especially considering he already finished his Robo Bay. Usually you want to make the War Prism ideally before the Robo Bay is finished, so that when it finishes you can start producing Colossus. And San is adding on quite a few gateways here.
That is quite a few.
I have to wonder, he's gonna go for the Immortal drop, I think. He realized that he's up in Robo against Robo scenario, and this is a very good thing to do, because your opponent is not gonna have Blink, he's not gonna have Phoenixes. How do you defend against this? You're almost always gonna take damage, at least lose a few pylons, a few probes here and there, especially if you don't see it coming, which is in this case. Hasselhoffs is on the way. Oh, he hallucinates the Phoenix. Is he going to be able to see the War Prism?
Oh, yes, it does. So good pickup there for Hasselhoffs, at least to know that is on the way, but he doesn't really have that much anti-air, so it's going to be hard to push that away. Fortune Overcharge will certainly help, though, as he does force it off.
Force field.
Much easier than I expected, actually.
But it's not over, you know.
Yeah.
You can delay a third base by a lot with this kind of move here by San. And the thing is, he's lost a lot of shield here, so he's going to play it safe. He pulled back all the way almost home. I think he's going to want to look to get back in there, make sure he can get a cancel on that third, which is just spotted, by the way. And then behind his tech his own third earlier than his opponent. Both players getting +2 right now. Look at the production type. Completely identical.
Nicely, yeah.
Earlier Templar Archive here for San.
The thing that I like though about this from San is that yes, it's a great harassment tactic, and it might even force a cancellation here because he's so far out of position. And the thing is that if you go into a PvP normally, you want charge, and unless you've got blink earlier on, which would be something that would be nice to try and chase this down. And if you had a higher Stalker count, then you could try and deal with it. But
the problem is you will need a critical mass of Stalkers, which will be really bad in the big fight.
Exactly.
You don't want to have a lot of Stalkers.
So it's hard to deal with, just in general, unless you've got a Stargate, for example, with one Phoenix, but we didn't see that opener.
Usually the best way is to have charge and put Zealots everywhere, because then the Immortals can't land or they just get sliced down. So in this case, Hazu was able to defend now, but he definitely suffered huge damages, plus I mean by that he was delayed basically. And San, if he starts the +3 immediately here, and he keeps on chrono boosting... Wait, I heard the Dark Templar.
Yeah, he's in this third. He's just sitting around. Realizes that cannon's probably going to finish up pretty quickly, and then he'll have to get right on out of there. So, and there's also an observer there, but the cannon's really going to shoo him away.
And you know, it's interesting that San is not changing it up at all in this series. Like, he keeps on going into the mid game. He keeps on trying to expand as much as Hazuops. He does not want to be any more aggressive than he did in the previous series. Like by trying some 2-base all in, even some 3-base timing. Is what he's gonna try here. Yeah. So this is still very late, and this is a situation in which Hazuops has a lot of experience and has shown really nice holds before. Look, Hazuops is already on 3 Colossus. The third one is rejoining the army of San. That means that right now Hazuops, he has a Colossus halfway through done, and he should be able to get that either before or during the fight, which is going to be great in defending.
Hazuops cancelled +3 weapons, realizing, thinking that his opponent's going for a big attack, and indeed he is. The army supplies in favor of San as he pushes on forwards, and Hazuops' army during all of that was very clumped up, so he took big damage. The absolute perfect opportunity for San to push on forwards.
The time warps were not good. They were both right next to each other, which really doesn't do much for Hazu here. And actually, if San gets too much into this natural base, he's going to get surrounded by a lot of Zealous warping, which will be good for Hazu. Oh, actually, that Colossus out of position. This is a big deal here.
He will melt very quickly. Those Archons also tanking the shots from Hazuops' Immortals. That makes it even harder for Hazuops to really clean that up. There you go, GG. He takes game number 2. We are 1-1 apiece to find out who advances on to play MC.
I think San, he might have identified the weakness in Hazu's playstyle finally. And that might be basically the way he consistently makes probes. Hazuops is one of those guys. The thing he hates the most in the world, actually it might be Swarmhost, but the second thing he hates the most in the world might be having to stop making probes. Because this guy, he loves to take a second base, a third base and all that. And in this case, he didn't stop. San stopped making walkers earlier than his opponent. That's why he had a 30 army lead. I didn't even realize. Looking at the supply, you could not see. But just before the fight began, I checked, and San had a 30 army supply lead, which usually, let's just say, is going to be really hard for somebody to hold when you have this much army supply, as long as you don't take a bad fight. Which in this case, it was very smart by San to engage where there was no photon overcharge, and he could use some good time warps.
It also comes back to him adding on the slight abundance of gateways before his third compared to what we've seen from Hazuops. So he really did ramp up his production very nicely in that mid stage. And now it's 1-1 apiece. So San and Hazuops. He was certainly bringing the upsets. But well, San is bringing it back. Be good for him. Be good for him if he can advance on, because I think both San and MC here were expecting to get out of this group. Sorry, this bracket. And
StarDust had to say something about this.
Yeah, certainly did. He's pretty good at PvP. Okay, so Heavy Rain.
Believe, actually, MC and San both are in loser brackets now already.
Yeah, it's crazy. One of them is not advancing, basically. One of them is not advancing, which is, I mean, considering how stacked the tournament is in general, that's, I mean, both of them could not advance if Hazuops decides to man mode it all the way through.
Yeah,
I think this is what we expected, though, right? In the first duel group, in the first duel tournament, we kind of thought that 2 Protoss would advance on. It just might not be the 2 we expected initially.
It's weird because Hazuops, he seems to do so well versus San. I mean, he's up 3-1 right now overall against him in this tournament. But against MC, he really looked like he wasn't sure what he was doing, and he looked a lot worse versus MC than he does versus San. So this might be a problem of style here for San. And even though he was able to beat Hazuops on the 3-base setup in the previous game, it wasn't really a real third base. You know, he took it, he didn't make probes, and he attacked before he even saturated it. So this might be the hint that San needs to basically decide what he goes into to try and beat his opponent, which is timings to try and punish his greed and consistency with building up his economy.
All right, well, game number 3 now on the way. As we'll be getting into this in just a second. Hazuops and San 1-1 apiece. This is, let's be honest, a lot of people looked at this dual tournament and said that, you know, Hazuops probably wouldn't have been in this situation. But here we go. He did well in the upper, defeating San already. You've already mentioned that he's 3-1 up against him technically in this group stage so far, or in this tournament stage. Now the countdown's begun, guys. So 1-1 apiece. This is going to be good. I think we've already seen some very cool PvPs today. PvP is just a matchup that's been ever evolving since the start of Heart of the Swarm, and it's gotten to a really cool place. I really do enjoy seeing the compositions. I mean, we see a lot of Immortal Void Ray coming out, still the committal to Colossi, and then Time Warps, ever changing those engagements. Very, very important. So let's get into game number 3 now, as we find out who will move on to play against MC. Will it be Hasu or San? We're about to find out. One down to the south as our red Protoss. Representing Mouse Sports, it's Hazuops. And up to the north, we have our blue Protoss representing Yo Flash Wolves, it's San.
We're back on Heavy Rain. So this is a very good map for Blink. In their previous game that they played on this map, I believe Hazuops went for the Dark Shrine. Now in the previous game, he already went for the Dark Shrine. Does he go for it again, or does he try to mix it up? Hazuops is really one of those Protosses I almost never expect to open Blink. There are a few Protosses out there I will always expect to open Blink. Baby Knights, even though he's been playing Stargate a lot these days. Guys like Soccer, also I think from time to time they like to play with Blink a lot. But Hazuops is, I feel, the last Protoss that will ever open with something like Blink, which on this map is definitely one of the better builds. So it's going to be interesting to see what they choose to go into on this map and how well it works out, because San is one of those guys that can play pretty much anything. Like going into a game, you can never say this guy is not going to do some kind of crazy all-in on one base or not. But so far in this tournament versus Hazuops, he's been playing fairly standard, like trying to stabilize on one base early on, expand, and then expand again. Which actually makes me curious. Like, I don't understand why he does that. Like, he used to do more timings, I feel, than he does now.
I think a lot of Protoss players in general have actually kind of taken on that mantle of trying to play the games out a little bit longer. And it's really cool to watch, because then you get into those weird late game situations where like one person goes for Tempests, and if the other one isn't really seeing that, then it can be really, really annoying to deal with that.
Actually, I'm glad you talk about Tempest, because in the previous game that they played on this map, which was the crazy base trade, San was the first player to take to Tempest much earlier than Hazu, and he got up to 5, and he was doing really well with them up until it went into some crazy base trade in which Hazuops just had too many Colossus, and he basically killed the buildings of his opponent much faster than he lost his. They both saved probes and tried to remake a base, but Hazuops definitely got the better end of that. So,
would you say then that the committal to Tempests, if you end up in a base trade scenario, is just not a good idea in PvP? I mean, obviously you can deal with your opponent's army maybe a little bit better, but they don't kill things quickly,
you don't really have much mobility.
Yeah.
I think what killed San in the games that he lost before, at least in the first series versus Hazu, was his timing attacks. He didn't have a pylon nearby, he didn't reinforce well, and Hazuops always took perfect fights. He had the concave ready before the fight even started. And with the hidden Twilight in San's main, I think he's looking to go, oh, actually the probe of Hazu was not realized.
Yeah, he didn't go up to the top left.
That's an interesting use of the map here, because there is so much space to clear inside of his main. San could have put this on the right-hand side of his base. There could have been a pylon anywhere. And Hazu, upon seeing that the Mothership Core was about to come out, he had to evacuate. He chose not to sack his probe to get the information, because he was not even sure he would have had it. And I think, yeah, this is going to be a Dark Shrine here for San.
Yeah, that's a scary thing to go up against on a map like this when you have so much ground to cover in the main and only a limited amount of time to do so if you're being super diligent about keeping that alive. So, unfortunately, for Hasu, he gets the short end of the stick here. He's going to go for Twilight Council, but I'm under the impression it's probably going to be Blink for him, more so than a Dark Shrine.
Yeah, with a late Twilight like this. Hazuops opened very safe versus aggression here. Double Gateway and Stalkers. This is not really something we've seen too much out of him before. Usually it's more like a Mothership Core, one Stalker or two, just to make sure he has the photon overcharge early on to defend. Now he got the Mothership Core. It looks like he wanted maybe to use it for a scout, but he actually checks all the way up to the middle of the map. That's it. Oh, interesting pylon by San here. He can warp on the other side of...
And that Mothership Core would have just barely seen the very edge of that, I think, if it would have been there at the right time. So that's a little bit unfortunate for Hasuobs, as San is now moving even closer.
Yeah, this is getting really scary here. No Robo has started. So this is similar to the previous game, except we have no hallucination here. In the previous game, San was the one who opened with a very late Robo against Dark Templars, but he had the hallucination to identify it.
If he's going to buy time, he has to have Stalkers on hold position, and even then it's going to take a while.
He needs a sentry. Oh, seeing that probe here. This is a big info. That means a pylon was just thrown down. If Hazu makes a sentry now, this would be a great read, and this would actually give him a serious chance at holding this.
Will he do it, though?
He's not getting a sentry
he's only getting Stalkers.
Stalkers are out of position. Oh, he places them right, but
there's the whole
he
position.
walked into some Stalkers. You need a sentry.
Oh, they got through! Oh, the Hasuops was just barely out of position. And unfortunately now, this Dark Templar is going to go to town on these probes, denying a lot of mining time as well. Hasuops, he was preparing for it, but he just slightly misplaced that Stalker on the left-hand side. That's a bad time here, as he's going to end up losing quite a few probes. He's already lost 6.
Yeah, and in the meantime, Stan's playing it safe. He's getting his own Observer. He's actually started an expansion. He's even getting an Immortal. 2 sentries.
Well, I mean, he sees that many Stalkers, he sees Twilight Council. He's got to be something like this.
That many Stalkers. It's 5, man.
Wow.
Nothing a little photon overcharge can't handle.
Dude, the Twilight Council.
Oh, and the DT escapes. Just as the Observer comes out, he timed this really well.
Sick timing. Sick timing.
I think Hasuops, he knows right now that he's in so much trouble. He has to anticipate his opponent having made an expansion already. And he basically has a choice. A lot of players will choose to go forward and use the blink to blink up the ramp to basically be super aggressive, get a second Observer back at home, leave the Mothership Core there to defend. And that's what he's doing. He's leaving the sentry back at home, the Mothership Core. He hasn't made an Observer. Okay, he's making...
At least he catches the DT over on the right-hand side, though. That's very good for Hasu.
But there's already enough for San. He's getting a 3rd gateway now. He was only on 2 gateways until now, which allowed him to get a second Nexus very early on.
Yeah, if Hasuobs resides himself to the fact that he has to expand, then he's going to be so far behind.
Committing to aggression, definitely. Now.
But how can you break him? How can you break this?
It's going to be hard. The thing is, he has a lot of room to maneuver on to blink up and do damage, but...
That's going to be the way he tries to come back into it, right? Like, just trying somehow, some way
he has to do so much damage. Like, realistically, you see that this is what's going to happen every time. Photon overcharge in natural, and then San defense in the main.
Oh, gets himself 1 probe, but that's about it. He loses a lot of health on that 1 Stalker. Needs to blink that out straight away. I had a feeling that probe might turn around and try and kill the first Stalker, but no. As San here... For now, all he has to do is retain his base and keep himself alive, and then he's going to be in a great position.
I think Hazu's going to expand from there. Realize that there is no way he's going to break his... Maybe force field? Okay, no need.
Nice kill.
And having the sentry on that much energy here for Hazu, he could actually scout the back of the main of San to try and see exactly if he's up against a quick Colossus tech, Blink, which in this case it is Blink. Which, to be honest, makes perfect sense, because San already had the Twilight, so he might as well just get Blink. And you know, he's saturated already on his natural for quite some time. If he just goes for a Blink timing against his opponent who's expanding now, this is going to be almost impossible for Hazuops to hold again. And I know I've said this many times, and then he ended up holding, but this time, this is looking very, very scary for him. I think San might just do that.
The thing also is here that Hasuobs, you know, he sees the photon overcharge that has dissipated, so he's trying to get a little bang for his buck in terms of those Blink Stalkers, but there's another photon overcharge available to San, so if he wants to, he's also throwing down quite a few gateways as well at the back.
3 extra gateways, so up to 6 in total. And this is not even going to be spotted, because right now Hazuops is not sending in any hallucination, as I said. It's very important to know what you're up against in PvP if you want to be able to counter it. In this case, Hazu is probably thinking, well, you know what? he's getting a bunch of Immortals, and I have my Stalkers plus Observer harassing. He's probably taking to Colossus. I'm just going to assume that.
Look at how well, though, San actually read his opponent just there. He didn't actually have vision of that Observer or the Stalkers actually blinking in. And Hasu Orbs is actually going to try and go for a Dark Shrine off of this.
He realized that he's going to die and he's too far behind to come back in a regular game. So if he does that, and he's able to, say, for example, snipe his opponent's Robo with 2 or 3 DTs, he knows an attack is coming too. So he's going to use his Observers to try and get a snipe on the Observer of his opponent. How many Observers do we have out for San? We have a single one. If this gets sniped and his Robo gets sniped as well, how does he win from there? It's going to be very difficult.
It really is. There's a pylon up to the top right, as well as the Warp Prism that is maneuvering into position here, as well as warping in a few Zealots to go for the harassment, but he has to buy time at the front, otherwise he's just going to die. That's a lot of Blink Stalkers that we're seeing from San, as well as the Force Fields are going to cut all this off, and this is just going to be way too much damage. He has too much army supply here, does San, and unfortunately here for Hasu Orbs, unless he's able to pull some kind of miracle, and then his hopes are going to be dashed in this tournament. The Nexus falls. GG, well played. San will advance on to play against MC for that final spot in the open bracket #1.
Kind of sad for Hazu here, but he did have a good showing this tournament.
Oh yeah.
3-2 versus San.
That's the crazy thing. Like,
he was 1 game away, though. Imagine he was up 3-0, so he just needed 1 more game. In the end, not able to get it.
I mean, all in all, the open brackets here are super stacked. So to get this far in them and defeat San in that first round, really impressive. But somehow, some way, San every single time, even if you beat him in that first PvP series, you end up losing to him later on, apparently. That's a tough spot.
Yeah, Hazu, he wanted to try for a different build. And you know, it's funny because I was saying he's the guy who would not ever go Blink. And guess what he was doing here? Blink plus 3 gateways. And that's why he didn't have the Robo. So I hope I didn't create some kind of Todd jinx here. This is really sad. Like when you open like this and there is like the one build, you know? Very often you're going to think like this because in PvP there are a lot of builds that are good against everything. Usually it means you skip detection and it means you're basically auto-lose or you're in trouble versus Dark Templar. So sometimes you do it thinking, well, you know what? 90% of the time in good shape, except the 10% of the rest of the time, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. This is what happened to Azu here. And I wonder actually what went through his mind to go for the Blink. I think he was just trying to surprise his opponent. He was probably thinking, you know what? I always play safe. Who will try DT against me? It's foolish. It will never work. So he tries to do a Blink build to really surprise the opponent, maybe catch him off guard with something like a Stargate or Blink himself with a Robo. And in this case, he gets caught off guard, and he was really unfortunate. I really have to feel for him here because there is not much he could do. He took a chance, and he didn't pan out as he wanted.
All right, well, a lot of PvP has occurred so far in this bracket, but now we're going to have another one after a few more things. So, guys, we're going to send it over to Red Eye, and then after that, we have our final match of open bracket #1.
Indeed we do. Kalaris, thank you very much for the commentary there. Of course, our last game of the open bracket #1 is coming up very shortly. San versus MC, 2 fantastic players who will be going head-to-head for the final place in the group stages, which begin tomorrow, of course. Before that, we're going to have a very quick break. But don't forget, it's not the end of StarCraft 2 today because we also have the Open Bracket 2. I can already see Grubby setting up just beside me right now, ready for Open Bracket #2, which will come straight after our last game of Open Bracket 1. Don't go too far away.